Welcome to Plok Talk, episode 2. We did it again. I am joined tonight by two amazing Plok comrades, Chris HL94 and Andross from the Nintendo Pals. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Always great to come and talk some Plok with fellow Plok jocks.
Yeah, Chris and I are veterans of the original episode of Plok Talk. It's actually, I had to go back and check. It's hard to believe you were not there, Andross. I don't know how that happened. How did that happen? How were you not on Plok Talk episode 1?
I definitely was at Plok Talk episode 1.
Were you? Did you join late?
I did.
Because I started listening. Okay.
Yeah,
I started listening. I'm like, he wasn't here.
Dad messaged me. He's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, that's today." Almost happened again tonight, actually.
I can't blame you because I was literally sleeping like 2 hours ago. So, you do what you can for Plok.
Yes.
But yeah, so 1 year later, and we are doing a second episode of this. What in the world makes Plok worth talking about? I've been sending out Ploktober is a thing. Look at how far we've come. This is something that has refused to die. It's probably out of all of our hands now.
True.
I'll say, Sam, I think it's working because I think, anecdotally, you put stuff in on Twitter and Plok's coming up there. This hashtag is taking off. People are noticing.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. I considered it a very proud moment when people that were not in our community in any way, shape, or form were using the hashtag. Even one person posting, going like, "What the heck is this? Like, what is Ploktober?"
Yeah, so I have made it I did miss one day so far, but that's okay. I threw in a bonus Plok to make up for it. I have been tweeting something with the hashtag Ploktober every day of the month of October. Most of the time, it's just some silly meme of Plok's head photoshopped onto somebody else's body for the sake of a pun. Sometimes it's just, hey, this part of the Plok soundtrack is awesome, or this level is really cool, or this power-up's really cool. But it is the 25th of October right now, and I've missed one day, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish the month out. Yep, I'm doing Plok's work, at the very least. So that is one of the things, there's the game Plok, which is a fantastic game that's overlooked, that hasn't really been re-released, never really seems to have gotten the light of day, that kind of drove a lot of this. But Plok as a meme has taken on a life of his own. So just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. How did this even happen? I'm not really even sure, and I think I caused it.
Yeah. The earliest recollection I had, I tried to go back in the history on Discord and find like the first Plok mentions, also going back on old RetroLogic Podcast, old Nintendo Pals podcasts, to try and find the origin. And much like Plok, the cartridge in my house, I'm not exactly sure where it started. Couldn't find the origin. I'm like, where is it? I am fairly certain it came out of some sort of conversation between Dan and I when he first reached out to me and asked me to come on to RetroLogic and first started communicating with me, like, hey, what kind of retro systems do you like, and what kind of games do you play on those retro systems? And obviously my answer was the SNES, and Plok was among the list, and he grabbed onto that because it was weird. I think it was like the one game that I had that was just like a very like weird game that, oh, I know that game, I rented that game. Like everybody has that has that relationship with it. If they remember it, it was like, oh yeah, I rented that once, and it kind of lives in the back of your mind, and when you see it again, you're like, oh yeah. That's Plok. For me, he never went away, but for a lot of people, he was just locked back there and had to be unlocked again. And I think that's where you came in and really unlocked the gate for everybody to become a Plok fan, Sam. I do think that you for sure you were the first person to Plok pick. I don't know what you call it. You add a Plok to a picture. And yeah, picture plus Plok meme. It's an easy recipe.
It was just that discovery that like something about Plok, just the character design and the name is just inherently kind of funny. And you just add Plok to random situations, and it's somehow comedic gold, even if you have no idea who Plok is. It's just like, okay, this is. And it started with Plok Stonks, I believe. Plonks, the Plok market. Because that was like the obvious place to go from RetroLogic, is like, oh, instead of the stock market, we trade in the Plok market. Like, it's the value of Plok cartridges that we're tracking. So.
Yeah.
I put on Twitter just before the show that Plok Brown will take us back to the future. I mean, come on.
There you go.
That is great. As I thought that's what Sam was going for with his Doc Plok earlier. I was like, oh, Back to the Future reference, but no, it's a Spider-Man reference.
Yeah,
like
Doc Ock, Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. I like the first ones I remember are President James K. Plok. That one stuck around. That one got its own little emote in the Discord and everything. Man, what a great one. Yeah, I'm unironically a fan of this game. And I've talked till I'm plocked in the face, with how much I enjoy the game. But just the community uprise around it has been something that has made me so happy. I don't know if I've expressed this enough, but it makes me so happy that there are so many people that just grasped onto that and keep it alive still. And it's still going strong. It's not like it's not like a meme because it lasts. You know what I'm saying? Like, most memes run their course and they die, but not Plok.
I think I've actually caught myself being frustrated at a situation at work and just said, I've been diddled again. And my kids who were in the room looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, no, we need to know more about what the hell are you talking about? And I had to go and explain the whole game and where it came from. And they're like, why would he run his underwear up a flagpole? I'm like, because that's what he does.
It's I don't know when that realization set on to me that like I don't like this is out of my control anymore. Like, it started as a silly joke, but it's like, no, like it will not die. I cannot control it. I can no longer stop it. Now it's controlling me.
I mean, I'm passionate about a certain game. We don't need to go there today, but the passion stays with me. I haven't inspired the community like this. This thing has taken off, and it's got, we've got membership cards, and we're talking about it everywhere. And we want Plok and Smash. We want a new Plok game. We want Nintendo to take this seriously, and they might not. But if they were listening to the fans, they would do something with this.
Yeah. The thing is, like, we talk about this all the time for Chris's favorite game, which is NHL 94, and I'll shout it out if he's not going to shout it out, because it's a fantastic game that needs to come to the Switch. But we talk about, like, easy money, like easy ports. I know Plok doesn't have a massive fan base, but neither did Jelly Boy, and Jelly Boy got over. I mean, come on, let's bring him over to the NSO. Yeah, like, bring my obscure game to SNES Online.
Right? How many games do you throw all your limbs at your enemies? That's something else.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and he did it before Rayman.
Exactly. I mean, I had no experience with this game. I didn't have an SNES, but this was something I got from the community, from the podcast, and I was part of the first episode, and I struggled very much so with the difficulty of the game. I told myself it was because I was emulating it. So I said, "Oh, the emulator, the game, the ROM wasn't good. That's why." I'm a competent video game player. This is my excuse. So I said, I'm going to invest in it. I bought a copy of the cartridge on eBay and quickly discovered, nope, it's all me. This is an extremely hard game, and it didn't make any difference. But I know that.
Well, it's hard. It's very hard. Yeah. I mean, I haven't beat it. I've tried. I mean, we do have a legend among us here, someone who has beat it, and that is Sam. Sam has beat this game,
and with video evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was not live. That would have been a bit more exciting. My live stream, I tried to beat it. I got somewhat close, but I think I died at Rockyfella on that stream. But yeah, the video's still up there. I reposted it for Ploktober. But yeah, that was quite, and the video evidence, even because it was just one blanket recording, it doesn't have voice or anything, but there is a prolonged pause before the final boss when I had one life left, where I just had to leave and like go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and psych myself up. Because it was like all or nothing at that point.
Man, that's like one of the biggest crimes of RetroLogic history is that was not live recorded, at least with voiceover.
Yep.
Well, as I was getting close too, I was like, should I just like go live now and be like, guys, I'm about to beat Plok? But I was like, I don't want to do that and then not beat Plok. Like that would be like so bad. Because I didn't know. Like, I started recording because I'm like, what the heck? Like, maybe I'll beat it, and I want to record it if I do. But, you know, I was like, I probably won't, because, like, the game is hard enough that I tried and failed several times leading up to that. So I was like, maybe this will be the time, but I wasn't holding my breath.
I think with the groundswell of support from the community, you would have had a lot of people rooting you on. It might have put you over the top. Who knows?
Maybe, but I don't know.
The pressure could have made
goes both ways.
I have started streams that have been like, I am doing this thing, and I do not accomplish that thing in the stream. Like, man, I lied in the title.
I do find that streaming, because it just splits the attention more, does make me a little bit worse at games I'm playing. Just because you're trying to keep up with something else, you're not 100% focused on just the game. But maybe
somebody commented on your stream, Andross, last weekend. I think they were saying how much you were reacting and responding to the chat. Well, you can't do both. Like, your attention is on it, and with this game like this, if you're not 100% into it, it's not going to work.
Yep. It's true for Plok. Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, you watched my stream of that, Sam. Where it was like, I would like have to like pause the game or like between levels. Look, I couldn't do it while playing. It's just too. I mean, the game is just too punishing for people not paying attention with the sky logs and whatever enemies. Fleas,
and I am willing to say, like, the logs that fall out of the sky and roll uphill, that is just a cheap shot. Like, we can say it. I love this game, but that's a cheap shot.
The Pickford Bros are just like, whoopah, uppercut to the gut with those.
You know, I mean, your 10th time playing that level, you don't mind anymore because you're like, I know where they are. But like, the first time, it's like, there's no way I was going to dodge that.
Yep. Yeah, man, it's interesting. There's a lot of older games that are that way, though. You play games on the NES. It's a lot of like memorize the enemy patterns and what's coming off screen.
And a lot of what makes Plok so outstandingly hard is the saves, or lack thereof. You know, the saves, extra live, the Plok continue system, which is not obvious how it works. And even then, I thought I understood it, but I really don't, because there was that time when you were streaming, Andross, and you died and you skipped a level because you had a Plok continue. You died forward in the game, and I don't know what happened there.
Did you know that that's a speedrun strategy? I figured, like, I went and looked at the speedrun world record for this game, and they literally do that exact technique on that specific level because there are all the extra check marks that you can pick up. They will grab all the check marks and then die as fast as possible so they don't have to get all the fleas, and they just skip to the next level. It's faster.
That's
pretty funny.
That kind of makes sense.
This game needs to be on NSO or something because it needs rewind and it needs save state.
Yes, for sure.
That would make it definitely more accessible. I mean, I will say, I'm somebody who likes hard games, and I do, like, I very much do, and I think everybody agrees to a certain point, like, save stating is not the ideal way to, like, when you're save stating, like, every time you get hit, rewind back, don't get hit. That seems to me like that's just not the ideal way to play the game. But, and that's why when I do use stuff like that, I usually try to be like, okay, I'm just going to keep a save at the start of each level. So that way,
yes.
I'm usually using them to circumvent continues. Like, because especially those old games where you can run out of continues, that's just like the worst feeling. It's like, come on, like, you know, I'm okay with like losing a life and having to start the level over, but like, losing run out of continues, have to start the whole game over is like, that's too much. You know, you need to find that balance. It's on the player to find, you know, what actually works for experiencing the whole game without trivializing the difficulty.
See, I'll be honest with Sam. I grew up, I think I'm the oldest on the show tonight. I grew up with the game Genie. I didn't have one, but I've figured out how to do it through emulation now. So if I'm playing an NES game or an SNES game I've never played before, it's just something I want to experience, go through the story of the game, maybe get to the end, because it's not like something I just want to experience the game. Mm-hmm. I'll cheat however I can, whatever I need to do. I think I enjoy more of the game. Like, to be honest, with a game like Plok, if I just sat there and kept getting frustrated at Cotton Island and never went anywhere else, I wouldn't get to see all the work that they put into the game.
Mm-hmm. And that's like a real shame with Plok, because there are power-ups that don't appear until the end of the game.
All of the vehicle levels are in the last world.
Yeah, other than the couple bonus shortcuts that use like the helicopter.
Right. Yeah, it's wild how, like, yeah, if you just play the Cotton Island portion, you miss all the flea section, which is very different goal for each level. It's not a simple from start to finish. You also would miss Grandpappy levels, which are awesome.
Right.
The black and white, or kind of sepia tone, old school style. And then, yeah, some of these, like, I would say Metroid-like bosses, you know, Metroidvania-esque bosses, where you have to memorize the boss pattern and shoot the right spots. Man, after I'm on a Metroid kick. I just finished Metroid Dread yesterday, and like, you know, this genre should be called Plok-like, not Metroidvania. We'll call it Plok-like.
It's not quite the same, because it's not like all the levels are connected.
Right, and but
the levels are, you know, very non-linear at times. Like, you have the one later beach level where you have to, like, do a circuit around the left side of the level, then the right side to get all the fleas, and then you'll wind up back at the flagpole. And
if the fleas jump off the top segment down to the bottom level, you have to go all the way back around. It's the worst. It's the absolute worst. You have to be careful.
Ghosts and Goblins was my poster child for NES hard games. It's Plok now. It's taken over.
yeah. Plok's taken over.
Well, I mean, like I said, a lot of it, I don't think individual levels get too hard until like the post-Legacy Island section. Maybe that's just me. There are those cheap shot logs though, but especially because your lives are pretty like the game's pretty stingy with lives. It's very stingy with continues because you have to. It's almost like the way the continue system works to my knowledge, except for weird skipping forward stuff, is that you earn a Plok continue every time you earn the 4 letters that spell Plok. You earn a letter if you pick up a check mark in a level, and you also earn you earn a letter every time you finish a level on your first life for that level. So it's almost like you earn continues by proving you don't need them. Which is always kind of like one of those things that's like, all right, because like now if I replay the first section of the game, I'm going to earn like 3 continues, but because the Plok continue only works by restarting you on the level you earn it, or actually the level after you earn it. Earn them, since the one way to earn them is at level end, but I think it always does go the level after. Like it's like you'll earn like 3 continues on Cotton Island, but like you never want to go back there. If you're that good, like you're probably not going to continue until you are like after Legacy Land.
Right.
So not this guy, but yeah.
You just got to take the shortcuts.
Yeah.
Skip all of Cotton Island.
You can shortcut the boss too.
Yep.
See, the funny part is that was probably the easiest part about it. I got the pattern pretty quickly, and but no, it was like the rock fellas got those. They just jump out and they fire 3 things at me, done, and I'm pulling my hair out.
Yeah, those are. They can be. Yeah, you really have to like know the timing on hitting them and then jumping away like immediately. The game is hard, like no bones about it, but like I appreciate it to an extent for that reason. Like, I think challenge is good because it forces you to learn. That's kind of my stance. I know some people they don't have the time, they don't have the patience, and that's why like I do agree like save states would be a wonder because so many more people would be able to experience this game in a way that isn't beyond that threshold of just too frustrating to put up with. But it does come down to that continue system. And you brought up Ghosts and Goblins, and it's weird because I just played Maximo Ghost to Glory, which is a spiritual successor to the series. And it does something similar in that you have to pay coins to save your game in that game. It's like very stingy with being able to save. But it makes you almost like you become strategic about like, do I save now or do I save like I've got a couple lives, I can probably beat the next level, and maybe next level when I save I'll actually like have a couple power-ups and it'll be a better time to save. And it's kind of the same way with Plok. Like Plok, you're like, I actually don't want to get the Plok continue yet because I want to get one after the next level because it's really hard and takes forever. And like you almost come up with ways to like game that system once you understand it. It's really bizarre. Like,
so it doesn't sound like a continue. It sounds more like a save state because you're saving, but not.
Except that it doesn't persist if you turn the game off.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
But you're not saving wherever you're not continuing from wherever you die. You're continuing from that spot where you earned it.
Yeah. I will say the saving grace of the flea pit is the tank level, because that is what kept me from probably having to give up on my successful completion of the game, because there is a very easy to get check mark in the tank level. And so I think I wound up losing like 2 or 3 lives on that level, but I got the check every time, so I got to continue. So the first time I died on the final boss and ran out of lives, I got to continue there, and it's like 3 stages before the final boss. So I was like, okay, I can beat these levels again. I'm gonna do it. And fortunately, it worked out.
Yeah, for me, a game like this where I know I can't get to the end, I'll watch a playthrough. So like watching your video is really cool to see, to experience the game, but that's the way I'll experience it, because I could practice this until I'm, in the grave, and I don't think it's going to get there.
Yeah, short of Game Genie stuff.
Yeah,
there is like there's a code that does let you very easily get extra lives. There's nothing like, I don't think there's anything for like pure invulnerability, but there's one that just lets you get shells every time you jump.
Oh, I need that. Oh, I get one of those. Give me a Game Genie.
When I got those every time I got a bonus Plok, it was like, yeah, I was audibly shouting.
Well, I mean, that is the thing about hard games, is it's like every life counts, every level you beat feels like a success. Whereas when the game's too easy, you're like, oh, let's see what's next. I mean, it can still be fun, but...
I mean, I made the Diddled again joke, but there was rare times where I didn't get that far. So that didn't... when I got Diddled this time. I got Diddled once. I felt pretty good about it.
Need to bring back What Sauce. What sauce?
Those in quotes are just great. I don't know who wrote that, but I've been diddled again is just such a fun phrase to say that, and I don't think it's even just a uniquely like British thing. I think it's just a awkward, seldom used phrase that somebody just wanted to put in. Maybe it is. Maybe it's more common in England to say diddled, but I think they knew that it sounded funny, and they went with it for that reason.
I hope that's the case, that it's not popular, like not a common phrase anywhere in the world, because it's just
I can't believe What Sauce is, but I don't know. I've been looking for opportunities to use that one.
Yeah, hop onto some Metroid Dread, play the final boss. I was saying What Sauce quite a bit over there.
He's a saucy boss.
He's a saucy boss. Oh man. Do you have memes pulled up for us to specifically react to?
We've got a couple. Speaking of Plok and the memes and the community, we have some from our community that are submitted. This is actually a contest. We will vote on the best one, and they will get a RetroLogic sticker. Let's start with Twitter. I think we just have a couple from Twitter. Let's see. We have our friend Liam Davenport. Currently, his Twitter handle is Where the Tweets Have No Name, but that's Liam. Was one of the hosts of Retro Groove, as a matter of fact. He says, I want to be diddled again. It's not really a pun. I think that's just a statement. Brutal Deluxe says, I guess I better pluck something out of thin air. Plok.
Oh, the dad puns. The Plok dad.
The classic what the Plok. So Eric Plunk has submitted the Diddler on the roof.
That's
he has the GIF accompanying it of the I forget that character's name. Anyway, it says yubby dibby 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 dum from the Fiddler on the Roof. Yeah,
that was
a great one.
That's a good one.
And I think we have Flightsy, who in true fashion has a very elaborate submission here. So let me read this whole thing and get it right. It's like a whole narrative. So follow that along. Here is my pun submission for the Plok Talk podcast. On a late Ploktober night, a man walked into a bar. He decided to try out a new joke he recently stole off Reddit. He asked, "What do humans and ploctopuses have in common?" However, the man was surprised when instead of an attempt to answer his question, or a confused "what?", he was rudely corrected, Actually, I'm pretty sure the plural for Ploktopuss is Ploktopi. The man was about to respond, it didn't matter, but a linguist nearby heard this and decided to give their own correction. Actually, Ploktopi uses the Latin suffix pi, but Ploktopus originally comes from Greek, so the correct plural would be Ploktopodes. But then the bartender, who is a bit of a linguist herself, responded, but we're not Greek, we're using Ploktopus as part of the English language, which means it gets an English pluralization, which means it actually is Ploktopuses. At this point, everyone was angry about being corrected, and the drunk, because they were in a bar, so a bar fight ensued. The man woke up in the hospital, and his first thought was to ask the Plokter who won the fight. The Plokter replied, you're not here because of a fight, you're here because you plocked yourself out walking into a bar.
But wow.
Flightsy, you've outdone yourself as per usual from Flightsy.
Yeah, Flightsy is our creator of the Prices Retro database. And so he has been listening to a lot of our backlog of episodes. And I believe that whole conversation is a reference to something I may have derailed a podcast during, talking about the correct plural of octopus.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments on RetroLogic, I wasn't on the episode, but I submitted an entirely Plok list for the Prices Retro. That was 5 items, all Plok. Plok in box, Plok just the box, Plok loose, Plok sealed, and I think it was just
the manual.
Plok the manual. How much was it all together?
But you didn't have Plok in the box without the manual.
That's true. I'm missing it. I missed a Plok.
That was not complete.
That was such a fun list to send in. I think I need to send it in again, but I need to find some creative way to make it all Plok without doing the exact same thing.
I mean, we'll see where the real popularity of Plok, because we'll see an upward trend. The value must have skyrocketed.
Well, hey, the value's gone up about $8 since last year, so
there you go.
We have power. We hold great power. So for the community pun submissions, I don't know where everybody else's vote. I do really like the Diddler on the Roof, Eric Plunk, but I think I have to give it to Flightsy.
I think I would agree, Sam. I mean, honorable mention to Diddler on the Roof, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll say the same. I like that Diddler on the Roof is simple. It's one. I'll remember that one, but I'll also remember the Ploktopuses and the Plokter. Like, there's a lot of Plok in that.
There's a lot of creativity.
A whole lot of Plok. That's the thing. I mean, I usually dislike jokes with a lengthy setup, but you know what? If you're gonna do Plok, you gotta go all out, man.
Go Plok or go home.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Plok, the game. We've talked about Plok as a meme. But really, I think one of the reasons we, especially RetroLogic, we love the game so much is because it is this, like you were saying, Andross, this game that sort of stayed in the back of everyone's memory. I know this was the case for me. Like, as soon as you mentioned it on that podcast episode, I wasn't even a host back then, but I was like, I remember Plok. That game was awesome. And I remembered all this stuff about Plok too. Like, the game actually had a really big presence, despite ultimately not selling as well as it could have or even was really expected to. It had a lot of presence. Like, I brought up later, like, oh yeah, like, I remember having this Mario Paint player's guide, like guidebook, and it like showed you a pixel map of how to draw Plok. Like, Plok was just everywhere at the time when the game came out. But like, so a lot of people did play it, but a lot of people forgot about it, like myself included. Like, I hadn't thought about Plok in 20 years. I know it's hard to imagine. But then, like, as soon as it was brought up, I'm like, oh yeah, Plok. And like, that is such a, like, universal like retro gamer thing to like bring up some old game and be like, oh, I remember this. Like it's kind of like what, to me, a lot of like what collecting games or playing retro games is all about, is like, you know, kind of rediscovering or maybe discovering for the first time for all those people who, because we won't shut up about Plok, went out and bought a copy of the game and
you all are the real MVPs. Those are the real MVPs right there.
But you know, it's that like discovering this game that's been dormant for so long, and then being like, oh, like this is actually really good. Like this is, because, you know, we joke about the jokes and the memes, and like, I'm here for you if that is the way you enjoy Plok now. But like, I'm with you, Andross. Like, I do sincerely think it's actually a very good game. Despite its flaws, I think it is, you know, very symbolic of the kind of game that I want to discover when I go, you know, when I take a chance on some game I haven't heard of, or a game that I barely remember.
Yeah.
As much as it can be frustratingly difficult, it's one of those games, once you start, you can't put it down. You have to see it through. It leaves this sort of legacy. It hits on all the things that I love about retro gaming. For one, music, like fantastic soundtrack. Because you go back and listen to some of these game soundtracks, they're just incredible. They're earworms that get just drilled into your brain.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the soundtrack yet. But so I mean, please, gosh, I mean, and for anybody that follows like retro game soundtracks, you know, Tim and Jeff Follin do some incredible work. I'm not the person to explain the technical aspects of it, but as I understand, they do some ridiculous things with NES and SNES sound chips that are just incredible for the limitations of those systems. But even like, I think one of the obviously it's a somewhat apocryphal story to begin with, but one of the anecdotes about that meeting with Miyamoto, where he said Plok could be the second greatest platformer above Sonic, but after Mario, if he worked on it, and that it was already the third greatest, is that when he heard the harmonica on the title screen, he was like, what is this? You're playing a prank on me. This can't come out of a Super Nintendo. Like, that was because like he knew like how hard that would be to do. Like, I think especially for people who know about the actual composition, like there's a lot of love for the Plok soundtrack.
Yeah, it's one of the few that utilizes the entirety of the. I don't remember how many tracks are available on the thing, but it has
4 channels. And
it has songs
I know
that
there's
use
some
all the channels simultaneously.
Again, I'm not the best person to explain it. I'm not a sound engineer or anything like that, but it does, like, there is a lot, like the composition of the songs is such that one of the channels, which is usually reduced to noise and percussion, is basically doing double time so that it can fill in some of the gaps in some of the harmonies or chords or what have you. So like the music had to be written specifically to sync up so that you never had that channel double booked, essentially. Like it's like big brain stuff for making that happen.
Not apocryphal. I have seen this tweet with my own eyes. David Weiss is a fan of Plok and the soundtrack to Plok. So he has shouted out the game. There's an interview done with him where they ask like what his inspiration was for the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack, and he said, well, he's like, there wasn't a ton at the time, but I can definitely say that, you know, inspired by a lot of the classics, Zelda, Mario. But then he specifically He specifically goes, oh, and of course Plok and the work by the Fallen Brothers. And that makes me smile because I consider the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack to be one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time. Another
like
one
any sane person.
Well, another one that pushes the limits of what can be done on an SNES. Also for a platformer that like really you wouldn't think would have that kind of soundtrack, you know. It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of love and effort that went in from the composers. The Fallen Brothers, my goodness, they are geniuses in this game. So if you do, I've said this in every Plok thing I have guested on this Ploktober, but if you do anything as a result of listening to this, go listen to the Plok soundtrack. Beach Theme is my favorite. That's my favorite song in the
I mean, I was trying to remember which NES game I was going back because of another podcast where they're playing all the NES games in chronological order. And I can't remember which game it was, but regardless of how well the game played, the soundtrack just sounded like somebody tried to rip off the Indiana Jones theme and just played it over and over again for the entire game to the point where you wanted to like literally drill out your eardrums. You're just like, I can't pay any attention to the game. It's the same 4 chords. It's awful, and it takes you right out of it. This game is so much better than that. It has this. I know I only listened to that Cotton Island, obviously, but it was fun. It set the mood. I love it. I think, like you said, it does so much for what the SNES can do.
Yeah, they're long songs too. Like it's rare that you're going to hear it. You're going to hear
very long songs.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up David Wise too, because every time I get to, and because it is a stage, I'm blanking on the name of it. Because it's a stage I usually have to play a lot of times, and it takes a long time. The one where you have no legs for the first half. I forget the name of it. But the theme there, the xylophone in that track always reminds me of Donkey Kong Country 3, because that uses a very similar synthetic xylophone type sound. And I like every time I play it, like I'm just like, oh, this sounds like something out of Donkey Kong Country 3. But yeah, you can definitely see those influences there. But yeah, the beach theme, the boss theme is just like the most. I don't even know how to describe that.
When the G falls off of Graveyard.
Yeah, pretty much. And that laugh track too. And it's funny because I caught this like almost immediately. Another Fallen Brothers soundtrack game, not nearly as great as Plok gameplay wise, but still a very interesting soundtrack. X-Men, Spider-Man and the X-Men Arcade's Revenge uses the exact same laugh. It's just sped up a little.
He also did Silver Surfer.
Yep, Silver Surfer.
What was his deal? He was really into the Marvel games.
Well, I mean, you do notice if you look at his kind of like gameography that he did a lot of games that are, for lack of a better term, not great, like Silver Surfer in terms of gameplay wise. Don't put Plok in that category though. But
Plok was not exactly commercially successful. So you could say
ultimately not great. But you do see a lot of like, just the weirdest like little games that oftentimes the soundtrack is the only thing outstanding. But I almost think that was kind of like a strategy. It's like, put me on a game where you have no expectations so I can just do whatever I want. I can just experiment and they'll be fine. They'll just be like, yeah, we just have a game. It needs music. So make some music. We don't really care. He's like, all right, great. It's like you listen to the soundtrack for Pictionary on the NES and it's like, that's a video with some good comments too. It's like, calm down, Tim. It's just Pictionary.
So you guys growing up with the game, maybe the Plok franchise itself didn't take off, but where do you see Plok influences in other games other than the soundtrack?
I think Rayman ripped him off, man. I'm
floating limbs.
I am unironically not a fan of Rayman. You know what? He's a phony. He took my hero's idea and became somewhat successful, but not successful enough to get into Smash Bros. Get out of here, Rayman. No, I'm not actually. I haven't played any Rayman games, but like design wise, I feel like there has to be something there. Plok came first, and they both have like the floating limbs and like the hood look.
I mean, at the same time, the floating limbs is kind of it's a technical thing. It's, that makes it much easier to render moving limbs, to not have to worry about what the joints are going to do. And it does give you a unique gameplay hook of, launching and returning and that kind of boomerang effect.
One we pointed out, Chris, on Keep Nintendo Weird over on the All In network of podcasts is... it might have been on that, might have been somewhere else, but that Acrylic, the island world that Plok lives in, is very craft looking. Like, it's very bright, colorful. It's supposed to be, it's polyester is the world, right? I'm remembering the lore right here.
That's the whole world. Acrylic is Plok's home island, and then there's Cotton Island, Legacy Island, which might be another island just in the past. And that's pretty much it. There's just 2 islands. Maybe. Yeah. Depending what Legacy Island actually is. I think it's just Acrylic in the past.
It's very crafty, like very bright and colorful. You can kind of see what looks like the platforms are supposed to be like fabric sewn onto things. And we pointed out that you saw a similar style with Nintendo in the future. I don't know if it's inspired by, but you didn't really see anything like this until you saw Kirby Epic Yarn, Yoshi Woolly World.
I would say even Yoshi's Island, much more immediate. I think probably took not in a way that it's like, copying wholesale, but I think because we know that the game left an impression on Miyamoto, that he offered to have Nintendo publish the game and work on it himself. Ultimately, that deal fell through because of reasons we're not privy to. But I think there was some influence there. I think that's fair to say. Influence, not, copy. But I mean, just the general aesthetic of Yoshi's Island I see is pretty similar. The less linear nature of some of the levels, where there's a lot of like things to go out of your way and collect, being necessary to actually 100%ing the game, and even just kind of the very I was pointing out the other day too how much Plok makes use of uneven terrain in its levels, and this is to keep encounters with the fleas more interesting, because if all the ground was flat, you would just walk under a flea every time it jumped. But because the ground is so crazy and there's so many hills and slopes, like you have to be mindful of like, okay, I might not be able to get under, like I might have to walk back, I might have to walk forward, I might have to jump over him. And I think Yoshi's Island does a lot of that for a different reason, because of how eggs bounce off of surfaces. But I do see some influence there, and that's much more immediate and a lot more plausible that it could have been, even a direct influence.
So I want to put words in Andross's mouth and maybe steal his answer for later in the show, but if I'm hearing him correctly, the next Smash Brothers needs to be more intimate one-on-one battles, grudge matches, as it were, and we need Plok and Rayman to fight it to the death to get this out of the way and, get revenge.
Do it. Yeah, I'm down for that. Get a Rayman versus Plok.
I would buy that DLC.
I would just love to see Plok come back in a video game of some fashion, even as a cameo. If the Pickford Bros are working on something else, they keep it up. They keep him up in the web comic, but personally, I wasn't crazy about the web comic. It was a little too self-aware and made me sad that Plok is nothing.
I share those impressions of the web comic. Like it's fun, but it's not what I wanted in the least. It definitely goes in a different direction from, it's a lot of self-aware humor, kind of makes Plok out to be a kind of pathetic character. And then it goes on to make a lot of jabs at like modern games, which coming to the webcomic later, a lot of those feel dated, number one. But it's just like, okay, this is not really like, this isn't Plok. This is just kind of Plok as a vehicle for something else. It's kind of
I would say I feel that way about the web comic. No, I mean no shade here to the Pickford Bros, and keeping him alive in any fashion is pretty cool. But yeah, it's definitely different character than what you get in the games. And like you said, the webcomic I don't feel like ages as well as the game. The game honestly ages better than the webcomic for its humor and for its gameplay. Because games are getting, I mean, on this indie scene, games are getting hard.
Well, the characterization that you guys are explaining from the webcomic, doesn't it all really jive for what I took from the game? Or I guess my first impression when I first saw Plok, what I was thinking was anger from Inside Out, or it is Inside Out, the Disney film.
Yeah, the Pixar.
So that where he's got the eyebrows. He's angry all the time. He's just rage. I've been diddled again. Someone's stolen my flag, and that's the kind of, like, he's angry and he's out, not out for revenge. Let's say he's out to right the wrongs or whatever. That didn't jive with this webcomic Plok that I'm hearing about.
Well, he's a very expressive character in the games, like extremely so. When he beats the boss, he goes from having no mouth to this giant cheesy grin, huge eyes that are, he's just like so happy. And then when he's diddled and diddled again, he's so angry, and it's fun. I do like that.
It's weird too how much happier Plok is just before the end of the game. Like it's kind of striking. I mean, it's inferring a bit from small lines of dialogue, but like you get to the flea pit, which is like this like gross slime covered hole in the ground that you wouldn't be happy, but like because there's all these presents here with vehicle power-ups that are nowhere else in the game, like in between levels, Plok's like, yay, a present. Like it's like, oh, he's just happy now. Like he's not even mad anymore. He's just like, oh, I'm having fun, I'm having an adventure here.
Yeah, seriously, it does evolve that even before the flea pit, because I haven't reached the flea pit yet in a regular playthrough. But toward the part where he's like, man, I was Ploktastic back there, and like just saying, like the in between is like way more positive. Where at the beginning it's like, gosh, if I get my hands on whoever took this flag, I'm gonna like he goes from begrudgingly forced into this adventure to shock from it was a diversion and his island's been taken over to I'm having a good time beating up fleas. What a character arc, what a story we have for Plok.
To just napping on his chair.
And that's how he ends it. He's just like, all right.
Just plop himself down in a chair and go to sleep.
It does seem like the character that he would beat the boss. You just got plocked, like he'd be right in your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting too. After that ending, when the screen that shows your score, there is a 3D model of Plok, and that just makes me wonder what could have been. Plok 64, was that ever, just a distant gleam in the Pickford brothers' eyes?
So can I insert here like what I would love? We got this magic treatment from Masahiro Sakurai when he was like, hey, I put this character in our games, Kid Icarus, His name's Pitt, something like that. And he gives him a whole new game. Well, first off, putting him in Smash Bros, he gets this game that had 2 sequels? 2 sequels.
Just 2 games, 1 sequel.
It had
some monsters
Kid
on the
Icarus.
Game Boy and the NES game. That's it. Uprising came after Brawl.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So just the first 2 games. And then fast forward 20 years, like, well, what would this character be like if he had the same treatment as Zelda, as Mario, as Donkey Kong? Where would he be now? Like, skip all the in-between stuff and let's just move to now. I would love that for Plok. Like, let's just go, okay, we're just going to jump off. Someone asked this question on the Nintendo Pals podcast. Like, what engine would you love to see a Plok game made in on Switch? And can't you just see a Mario Odyssey game, but where Plok is the main character? Like, that exact engine, the bright colors, the wacky art style moving from world to world. I mean, I would love for that to happen. I would lose my mind if we had that kind of game all of a sudden appear.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I'm a bit more. I don't always like 3D platformers as much as 2D one. You know, I'm a very pro 2D guy. But it does seem to me like Plok is kind of made to adapt into a 3D platformer. Like, you already have non-linear levels where you're hunting down fleas from all across the level, and then returning to a flagpole, which is, you know, because that's one of the biggest things about shifting from level design for a 2D game to a 3D game, is you can't just make it linear, because you have the player can go in any direction. If it's linear, then you're only moving in one direction, really. And you can kind of do that with stuff like Mario 3D World, but like, as a general principle, like, that's why 3D platformers tend to be collectathons, because they want you to explore the whole level they made, so they need to hide stuff in every corner of it. And you could hide fleas in every corner of it. And even just like the way he throws limbs and they return to him, that would actually work really interestingly in a 3D space. I don't know how like the fleas hopping around would work. You'd have to make them a bit more challenging.
First person Plok. You just have fists.
First person shooter Plok.
I mean, let's be honest. I know the obvious one is Smash Brothers, but I'd play Plok Golf and Plok Sports, Plok Racing. Bring it on. Yeah.
In some alternate reality where Miyamoto went through with the deal and making this the second best platformer in the world, this Plok would be up there. I mean, Sonic struggled. You guys talked about this recently on RetroLogic, the move from 2D to 3D. Sonic really struggled. Sonic had a hard time.
Mega Man struggled too. They had such a built-in fan base that, you know, there were people who were willing to support the franchise even after those flops.
Yeah. Mario rocked it, moving from 2D to 3D. Groundbreaking. Plok could have been there with him. You know, Miyamoto was captaining that ship. If Plok got to the level of like C-tier Nintendo franchise, I don't know where what I would say is a C-tier Nintendo franchise. Maybe like F-Zero or maybe
Kirby.
Kirby. I would say Star Fox.
For a long time, that was Donkey Kong as well. I mean,
yeah,
Donkey Kong Country trilogy, but like DK64 didn't do so hot for a lot of people.
In this alternate reality, Plok could have been one of those games. He was never going, like, if Miyamoto came in and took it under his wing, it was never going to be Mario. It was never going to be Zelda. But it could have been up there with Donkey Kong, F-Zero, Star Fox, in this, like, maybe skips a generation or two, but you get a sequel, and it would have translated so well. You were right. The mechanics of this game would have just worked in 3D space. Much better than Sonic, much better than Mega Man. And a lot of these mascot platformers that died. Like so many just died.
Well, I mean, yeah, you still maybe hit a wall because there was a point when mascot platformers as a whole that weren't Mario were pretty much dead.
I mean, Rayman did die off too eventually.
Crash Bandicoot died off eventually.
Yeah, they're all coming back now because companies realized, people still like this stuff. We just have to do it right. But even then, I mean, they're coming back. You say Crash is coming back. You say like Mega Man's coming back. Sonic's coming back. They are tuning back to what they had. Mario evolved and has tuned back to what he had. I mean, we had New Super Mario Bros. As a series, and we have the 3D series. It almost branched into two genres within his franchise, and the 3D Mario games have all been just absolute bangers, in my opinion. Maybe with the exception of Sunshine, but I like Sunshine well enough to say it was pretty good. So a lot of these ones that are coming back are just going back to the roots. Mega Man straight up just went back to pixel art style. Arguably the best Sonic game that's come out in the last decade is Sonic Mania, and that one's just call back to the old games. So I fear that if Plok does make a resurgence, it would just be like more of the retro, which I shouldn't fear because that would still be awesome. But I would have loved to see. That always gives you the hope they'll do something more interesting if it does well, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could do a retro callback, introduce it to a new generation, and then when Plok, when that Plok, the passion for Plok hits these younger people, then it's going to take off. That's what it needs.
The thing is, as a character, he totally could hit it big like that. He is an interesting character. It's a bright, colorful game. It's very family friendly, Yeah,
Plok would sell a lot of Funko Pops and plushies, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he would be a perfect Funko Pop.
I would buy a Plok plushie, especially if it's got Velcro detachable limbs.
Detachable limbs, yeah.
I believe this was a question I submitted for Nintendo Pals at one point. Was
Plok merch. Plok merch. It doesn't exist, and it's very sad. I have to custom make it if I want it.
I mean, I could see my son taking his arms off and throwing them at his sisters or something like that. That's just gonna be now I gotta play this I gotta play this game now. I can chuck arms at people.
It would be yeah. I do think there's life here. I am curious. I would love to have an actual conversation with the Pickford Bros about this specifically. Why not make another title in it? Do they think it wouldn't be successful? I mean, there is always that fear in game development. Are they working on other projects? Why?
It's interesting because they had the interest to make the webcomic. They had the interest to bring it back. They were very adamant, and this may be speculation on my part, but this may be why they did not let Miyamoto or let Nintendo publish the game, because they wanted to retain the full intellectual property rights of the character. Right. And Nintendo probably wouldn't have agreed to that. But it is interesting to think what was their thinking on that, because they care about the character enough to make the webcomic. Could we see a game, or did they just step back from game development as a whole? But if you're gonna do it, now's a great time to get back, with all the resources available to indie developers. It doesn't have to be something huge where you get Nintendo to publish it. It could be a smaller project, and heck, we got Ploktober used by people that were not directly in connection with us on Twitter. It wasn't ever trending, but it could be a viral thing. Be hey, we're bringing back Plok. If Bubsy can come back, anything is possible. I'm just
right. Plok deserves it more than Bubsy. Come on.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a gripe of mine, and so that when you see some of the really obscure games. I think, Andross, you mentioned this before. I think Plok is ripe for a Nintendo Switch Online revival.
Yep.
Yeah, again, we don't know all the details. Nintendo Switch Online is a strange beast. I don't know how Nintendo negotiates those that aren't first party. We haven't seen a lot of them, but we do see them. We see some companies seem to be pretty willing to play ball there. Like, you see a lot of Jalico games. You see literally nothing from companies like Square. They have their own plans for re-releases. I think they've made that clear because they've been re-releasing things just independent of NSO. For other titles like Plok, I wonder what it would take to make that happen. I wonder what Nintendo asks of people. And in this current climate, when there's many ways to re-release something, if you've got a game that you hold the rights to, you got to think, well, is this the best way to do this? Or, can I, repackage this myself, put it on the Switch eShop, put it on Steam? Do I want to do something bigger, like an HD remake or remaster or what have you? All those questions have to be answered, and I'm not the Pickford Bros. I can't tell you, what they're thinking.
Listen, I'm not here to call them out, but I mean, Plok has not re-released in any fashion.
It's true.
So like
fortunately,
if we could make a decision.
Fortunately, unlike many games that don't re-release for old systems like the Super Nintendo, it's still not that expensive. Like it is. That is again one of the reasons why I think it's a great poster child as a game for somebody who is exploring collecting. I don't know what you call that. But the price has gone up, but the price of everything's gone up. It's still, I think, just under $30, which is not bad for the current climate. It used to be under 20. That's what it was when I bought it a couple of years ago.
I mean, if they're looking for any kind of audience or what kind of market this game could have, I'd love to play this on the go somewhere. So if it's on my Switch in some fashion, I'd definitely give it a try.
I mean, I'd even take a Steam, some official way to get this game. I mean, you can always do a ROM, but it's like then that money is not, that money's gone. That could be going to Plok too. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want this game to see more light in some fashion. So a re-release of some kind, because to be honest, when it comes to the world of emulation, most regular people are not going to do it. It's too complicated and too hard to do. And when it comes to the world of retro gaming, almost a similar barrier. It's too complicated to go. It's too complicated and too much work to go out and find the old cart, find a system that can play it. Yeah. And even nowadays, find TV that will play that old system. And so this game is stuck on a time wall. Like there's a wall here that prevents it from hitting a new audience. So even if they just did like a small, no changes, emulate, put it on to Steam, making it more accessible to modern audience.
And that is the wonderful thing about emulation. Emulation just as a technology is the most cost-effective way to keep games playable on modern hardware.
Yep.
And it really, the limited availability of re-releases really just comes down to intellectual property and copyright laws and how those work and how those get resolved. And unfortunately, for a lot of games, the people who could make this happen have determined it's just not worth the effort in a lot of cases. With luck, we can prove that Plok is worth the effort.
Ploktober!
Yeah. So Ploktober needs
that's one end of it. The other end is beyond my control, but that is to make, republishing things easier, to make those laws a little bit more lax, or it just a little bit more clear. Because in a lot of cases, at least with Plok, we know like the Pickford Bros pretty much have the ability to do what they want with the Plok property. But in a lot of those cases, for other rare games that don't get re-released, it's like it was developed by a company that no longer exists, and just trying to answer the question of who has to sign off on it is often very difficult.
All we can do as a community, Sam, is that Ploktober 2021, Ploktober 22, 2023, and maybe by 2030 we'll have the momentum to get it going.
I want this game, the meme of this game, to outreach as well. And what I mean by that is you've got some of these big name YouTubers, content creators, streamers that have their games that they play for the giggles. One that I can think of that's among a couple different communities is Gex. I mean, for some reason in the Scott the Waz, the Donkey realm, Gex is the big joke. But it actually has put the name of the game on the map. I would love. I've shouted out on Twitter a couple times to different content creators, be like, you guys should check out Plok. I would just love for someone to pick it up that has a huge audience. You know what I'm saying? Or you know what? We could just get RetroLogic, Nintendo pals, Nintendo dads. Let's just get us all huge. You know what I'm saying? We'll get huge, and then we'll bring it that way. But I would love it if we could get Ninja play some Plok. Let's get someone huge to showcase this game, because there are a lot of these gamers that are. I think that this game is ripe for a good speedrunning community. There is one. It's very small, but let's get a big speedrunner in here to showcase what this game can do, because it's got some fun stuff. I don't know if anybody's watched the speedruns for these, but they do.
It's pretty crazy.
I think the roadmap we set out after episode 1 was get RetroLogic to 1 million subscribers, and then step 2, all in on Plok.
Yeah, it's all in on Plok. The name change. It's a rebrand. It's no longer RetroLogic. It's Plok.
RetroLogic. There you go, RetroPlok. I mean, Dan needs a sticker for a RetroPlok.
Just remember, RetroLogic is not just a podcast; it's also a game store which sells only one game, which is Plok.
No, that is the greatest. I don't know if we can even continue. I don't think we can trump that. That's the best Plok meme I've heard today.
That might be a good place to stop.
Well, yeah. I think this has been a wonderful episode too. So thank you for joining me, you two Ploktastic gentlemen. If you have any closing remarks, make them now.
I earned my Plok card today.
You have a Plok Jock membership card, right?
I do. I earned it today. Right. Today I earned it.
Great.
I look forward to seeing Ploktober 2022. And I know there are a lot of community members that couldn't make it tonight that wanted to be here for Plok Talk 2, that were part of Plok Talk 1 or have joined into the Plok shenanigans in post. So shout out to all of them that couldn't make it tonight. Y'all are here in spirit. Thanks for the support and being Ploktastic people. This is so fun. I love it. Love it.
Yep. Plok lives on. Like I said, it's bigger than any of us now. It's kind of terrifying, but
Plok will go on.
Very humbling.
I mean, Flightsy has alluded to Plok being the mascot for RetroLogic, and I think he's there for sure. Dan just needs to reach out to the Pickford Bros, get some permission to make some merch.
Need some Plok swag.
Dude, we got if we can get that connection, I mean, honestly, RetroLogic does have we do have the best shirts. I mean, come on. We got literally dinosaurs.
Yes.
They're super comfy and fair trade cotton, and I'll stop advertising now, but literally I'm very proud of our shirts. They're great.
I've got the
and that's all Dan.
All set. Sam, get the Plok out of here with the head. That's the shirt.
With the angry eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, angry eyebrows.
We need to find a way to make that happen. If we do, I know I'll order 3.
I got my money waiting for it. It's burning a hole in my pocket.
I've been diddled again.
That's a good one too.
That needs to be somewhere. That needs to be somewhere on a shirt. Oh man,
for sure.
Thanks for having us on, Sam. This is fantastic. Thanks for hosting this tonight.
I am always down to talk Plok around the clock, man.
The shirts that's another shirt. Plok around the clock. They just write themselves.
Yeah, one of these days I'll work out a 24-hour Plok stream for Extra Life. Needs to happen.
We can take shifts. I'll join for that. I mean, it might take 24 hours for me to beat this game.
It might. You might go insane by the end of it. I don't know. But thank you for tuning in.
There's a plot for that.
Yeah, there is. There is. All right. I'm going to close it out. So thank you, everyone, for listening to Plok Talk episode 2. It's crazy to believe we did 2 episodes of this, but episode 3's got to happen at this point. We cannot stop it.
Now. It's a limited series.
Plok cannot be stopped. He is implacable. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned to RetroLogic for all things retro gaming and many things Plok. Ploktober has been a blast. I hope you all have enjoyed this game. Thank you for listening, and good night.